All right. Now what we're going to do is go back. We went through Ruby and partway through Rails here, and we're going to go back to good old Agile design now. Behavior-driven design and user stories, which we've talked a lot about. So, why do software projects fail? Well, they don't do what customers want, or the projects are late, or they're over budget, or they're hard to maintain and evolve, or they're all of these, all of the above, right? So what is it about Agile that tries to avoid these failures that are so famous? So let's do a little review of Agile. So Agile is working closely with customers to develop requirements, and you work with everybody involved in the project. You do these iterations that are pretty quick every week or two so you don't get out of sync with the customer, and instead of these longer phases of the plan and development methods. And before you do the next thing, you check with the customers to make sure they're happy with what you've done so far. And so you're validating, building the right thing, building the thing right. The actual iteration that corresponds to chapters of our textbook is what we're doing now, and what's highlighted in yellow is what we're talking about today. So talking to the customer, behavior-driven design, and then measuring velocity. We'll do all that today. So what is behavior-driven design? That is the idea that you ask questions about what the app is supposed to do before you start writing it and during development. So this is a different idea, right? Rather than you'll build it and then show it to the customer. So, and it's focusing on validation versus verification. How are we going to get our requirements and cooperating with the customer? We're going to use user stories. Just stories, that sounds like fun. Let's write up some stories. And these are these very lightweight, short descriptions of how the app's going to be used, and you're going to be doing this very soon, right? And the BDD part of it, behavior-driven design, as opposed to implementation, is you're trying to capture the behavior. You can think of it at the acceptance test level or integration test level. Armando will talk about test-driven design in the future segments, and that's more about implementation. So what are these user stories? What do they look like? Well, they look like this. This is this 3x5 card. So it's 1 to 3 sentences in just plain old English. It has to be short enough to fit in the 3x5 card, and it's not something you write yourself. You write in conjunction with the customer. It comes from a startup company called Connextra. They came up with this format, which is the feature name, which is at the top, and then this 3-part sequence that as and the type of stakeholder, like in this case, I'm a movie fan, but it could have been the box office operator. So as a kind of stakeholder, so that I can achieve some goal, in this case, so that I can share the movie with other fans, I want to do some tasks. So I want to add a movie to the Rotten Potatoes database. So the 3 phases can be there, and they can be in any order according to this Connextra company. And basically, what you're meeting with the customer and agreeing with these 3x5 cards is coming up with the acceptance test before you write any code. So where do these 3x5 cards come from? They came from the user interface community, and the user interface community does a lot of work with dealing with people. And what they found was 3x5 cards, how can 3x5 cards be threatening, right? Anybody can deal with 3x5 cards. When you start building code and you show that to them, they kind of feel constrained by the code you've built because they don't want you to have to throw it away. But because we want to get to what the customer really wants rather than what they think they want, we want to have them involved in the brainstorming, and 3x5 cards are a really easy way to do it. It also takes almost no time to fill these out. And once you get a bunch of cards, you can rearrange them, reprioritize them, decide what you want, and you can obviously easily throw cards away if you decide you don't like the user stories. And then over the development, it's easy to create these new 3x5 cards. Now, what you write depending on which kind of stakeholder you are. So this is 2 descriptions of the same feature, and which we'll talk about a lot, which is a theater-going application, which is Armando worked on his community theater group. So see which of my friends are going to a show. So as a theater goer, so that I can enjoy the show with my friends, I want to see which of my Facebook friends are giving a show. So from the patron's perspective, as a box office manager, so that I can induce the patron to buy a ticket, I want to show her which of her Facebook friends are going to show. So there's 2 different perspectives with 2 different goals. Okay, so that's user stories. Now, real user stories have hundreds of these stories. So many, it's easy to fill out 3x5 cards to come up with potential things that you want to do, a lot easier to do that than to build these things. So there's something that's called a backlog, which, there's the ones I'm working on, and typically even when a project will be done or the first release, you still have a bunch of 3x5 cards left, and that's what the backlog is, and we'll see that with tools to track these things. You put these things in order in the backlog as well, so that when you get some time, you'll take them out of the backlog and work on them. So as you do an iteration, you'll be picking things out of the backlog in priority order. And you can even organize these user stories together, so you can say this is going to be the next release, these stories. Now, another thing related to user stories that's been useful in these programmer teams is what's called a spike. And what a spike is not a user story, not something that the customer wanted you to do, but something you need to do for a project. So what a spike is this quick investigation into something that's a problem for the project. It's not a feature exactly that the customer asked for. So like, well, we're going to do recommendation algorithms, like Amazon has recommendation algorithms. If you like this book, you like that one. Someone has to go learn more about recommendation algorithms. So you put that spike there on the list of to-do things. And even if you build some code to try and figure out the algorithms, that you're not part of the code development process. You're just doing some exploratory investigation, and you just throw this stuff away when it's ready to go ahead. Okay, so that's user stories.